listen here, you big macho maniacs. I'm loving the show so far, and you better bet dollars to dog nuts you keep it coming, or I'm gonna throw you from the top rope.
You're in big trouble, though, pal. I eat pieces of shit like me for breakfast.
You eat pieces of shit for breakfast?
No.
Welcome back to Breakfast of Champions, Season 1, Episode 4. Pew, 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 pew.
We made it. 4 episodes deep.
Just since last, we've kind of joined one another. We've had this idea kind of farting around for a while, and we thought, let's just kind of get together and let's do it. We got some, introductory equipment, and we've been, meeting together in this practice space that we used to share with our band. And since last we've spoken, we have uploaded 2 episodes to
second
the world.
episode went live today.
Correct. So, yeah, we're super excited. If you've got a platform that you listen to podcasts on, be it Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, however you get your podcasts, we're on there. So if you're a family member or a friend or someone we've given $20 to, like, share, subscribe, rate, review, all of the tacky things that you hear other people say. It just helps us out. It costs you nothing. Helps us put the word in there that we're out there. There are people listening to us. So just kind of a word to that. Previous episodes, we didn't have a grasp on like how that all was going to like look or work. And now we have like a little RSS feed, and it's like we're big boys with big boy podcast stuff. So,
and you're going to get to hear this spiel every episode for the next 96 episodes. 95 episodes? I don't know how to count.
Wow.
Minimum. 95 more episodes.
So if you've never joined us before, this is a podcast about breakfast foods and violence. In previous episodes, we've talked about donuts. We've reviewed donuts. We've talked about a little bit of violence, our personal violence histories. I was kind of like thinking back on that episode after last we left, and I was like, oh, there are 2 big ones that I kind of left out there. So we might have a part 2 on that, or maybe just integrate those 2 fight stories into some other podcast that we do in the future. So that's kind of the beauty of kind of like getting to listen back to some of these, is going, oh man, I should have said this, I should have said that, and that automatically generates content for future episodes. So this episode, I am, again, the second episode, I was just like a little boy, just giddy little boy, because I was blessed with Parker's Dreamboat Donuts creations, and we reviewed those and stuff. But I mean, I'm getting just, hit with like the most homemade thing you can make someone, and that is pancakes. So Parker has cooked us graciously just a big old stack of flapjacks over there.
Flapjack, griddle cakes.
Griddle cakes, whatever you want to call them. There's some bacon. There's some real maple syrup over there.
Straight from Canada, eh?
Yeah, man. So that's going to be kind of the theme of the episode, is pancakes, maple syrup, and we're going to talk hockey this episode. So we'll get into that later. But just quickly, just touching on it, a little taste into what's to come in this episode. We're going to get into some hockey stuff. Tell us about what you brought.
Yeah. So like you said, pancakes, bacon, maple syrup. When I think hockey, I think Canada. When I think Canada, I think maple syrup, which then makes me think of pancakes. So yeah, I made some pancakes, which I did some reading, because I was like, pancakes also make me think of Canada. And unfortunately, the Tim Hortons here in North Texas has not opened yet, or else we would have gotten some Timmys. That didn't happen, unfortunately. But yeah, so I did some research on pancakes. Actually, pancakes were probably eaten in prehistoric times from the little bit of research I did. But North American pancakes, whether you're in the US, Canada, it's pretty much the same thing. yeah, I mean, these are just basic pancakes.
Nice.
So nothing super crazy or special, just homemade pancakes.
Did you eat pancakes a lot growing up?
No.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about this in the first or second episode. Biscuits and gravy were like the go-to carb for breakfast.
Sure.
Me personally, I prefer like a really good waffle over pancakes most of the time.
Interesting.
Like pancakes are actually at the bottom of my big 3 breakfast carbs. Like number
They're
one,
the J. Cole of your big 3 breakfast.
number 1 would be waffle. Number 2 would be a good French toast.
Okay.
And then number 3 is pancakes. Like as far as like sweet breakfast carbs, like biscuits and gravy, number 1 category of its own.
And then savory on the other side.
Because that could be a meal on its own. We're normally like pancakes, waffles, French toast. You're going to want like a bacon, a sausage. You're going to want toast. You're going to want, or not toast. I'm blanking out.
It happens.
Eggs. That's it.
Those things.
Hash browns.
So I do remember, speaking of pancakes, you want to, we don't have any plates here, so we're probably just going to have to do rolling dippers.
I was going to say we got that lid for the Tupperware. Like we can do that. Also, pancakes are kind of finger food.
That's right.
So
my dad has a pretty good pancake recipe. Kind of in previous episodes, we discussed our love of cooking in the first episode. And my dad has been cooking the same pancake recipe since I was a little boy. He doesn't look up in anything. It's just all in his head. All of the measurements are in his head, and they come out perfect every single time. They're big, they're thick, they're fluffy. It's just one of those things that, he, usually on weekends, he'll get a wild hair and he'll just wake up and then there'll be a huge stack of pancakes there. And then he does that short order cook thing where whenever someone comes to get their pancake, like, how do you like your eggs? And like, this. So I did grow up eating pancakes. The other thing that reminded me just now is we had an emo brunch here.
Oh, yeah.
Like a year ago.
I've actually got the recording on my phone of that.
Beautiful. So we, as older gents in the punk rock scene, practice times, get harder whenever there's children involved or whenever there's like people's jobs involved, or even just as the fact that we're pushing 40 now. And it's like, do I want to be at a practice space at midnight or do I want to be at a practice space at like 11 a.m.?
Yes.
So, we went with the route of like, well, let's make it fun. So not only are we going to be here at 11, let's have some like breakfast foods. And so Parker, you made blueberry pancakes for us.
Yeah.
And then we got some mimosas happening.
Mimosas, coffee.
Yeah, it was a really good time. And it was probably one of the better practices we had had. So
I think we were all firing on all cylinders because it was early and we were fueled with carbs and caffeine.
So the other thing I think about when I think about pancakes is, like you were saying, the pancake versus waffle debate, but that leads us to, like IHOP versus like Waffle House or Denny's versus, Pancake House or whatever. And so what's your favorite like chain pancake? Do you have one?
Ooh. Okay. So
like I can taste a Denny's pancake right now.
I'm IHOP.
Yeah. You're an IHOP, Joe?
I kind of wrote it off for a while. Like here in Fort Worth, we've got Old South Pancake House.
For sure.
Which I've got lots of stories about that place for another episode.
Yeah, who doesn't? We'll have to have a Old South episode.
I've got the perfect guest for this too, who loves breakfast food and violence, and has eaten a lot of Old South with me. Anyways, I digress. So
it's like having a girlfriend from Denton. Like you know what I mean? Like if you're in and around this area, like you've had a girlfriend from Denton, or like if you've gotten into it at the chat room, or like it's like just mandatory Fort Worth bullshit. It's like being way too drunk at Old South Pancake House and just like hearing somebody get into a fight, or you and somebody that you're with gets into it with somebody, or even the staff. They're not the friendliest when it comes to dealing with drunk assholes at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. So frog fries, baby, for life.
That actually reminded me of an IHOP violent story in my past when I was 18.
Perfect time to tell it.
It isn't that crazy.
Well, you tell that, I'm going to make a little roll up and dip.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start. IHOP is my pancake of choice from a chain. And then, this story, I was 18. I worked at Virgin Megastore in Grapevine Mills. And all my friends were back in town for Christmas. They'd all been partying and drinking all day and, having fun. I'd been at work all day because it was right after Christmas, retail. And I roll up to IHOP to hang out with them. And these dudes come up and just start like talking all this shit to us. It's not even all that late. It's like 9 or 10 at night. And they're talking all this shit and we're laughing at them thinking they're joking. Like, oh, we train MMA. Like, we're going to the UFC. We're going to kick your asses. And we're all a bunch of like kind of scrawny punk dudes. We're just like, all right, yeah, ha ha ha. Like, why are you fucking with us? Leave us alone. They like make some noise. IHOP chases them out. So no violence actually happened. It was just a threat of violence.
Yeah. Violence in the ether.
Yeah. Cops show up. They hassle us. Other guys are gone. I end up getting a minor in consumption.
Oh, no.
I had just been working 12 hours.
Oh, no.
I was like, you can breathalyze me. They're like, no, your eyes are bloodshot. I was like, I don't do drugs. I don't smoke pot. Like, I don't drink. Like, come on. They're like, no, you're underage. Your friends are all clearly drunk. You're under under something. Write me a ticket. Tell me if I get in my car, they'll arrest me and take me to jail. There's a hospital across the way. I go over, blood test, breathalyzer, urine test, all of it. 100% clean. Take it to court. Some of the guys who were there who had been drinking rolled over on everybody else. So they're like, oh, we know you were drunk. I was like, oh, that's weird. I've got all this paperwork. And they're like, why didn't your friends do that? And I was like, I don't know. I'm not in their heads. They're like, well, shouldn't have been hanging out with them. Here's 3 months probation.
No way, bro.
Yeah. Yep. So no violence, just bullshit.
Yeah, no way. So this podcast is brought to you by Mountain Dew Baja Laguna Lemonade.
Oh.
It is Mountain Dew with a blast of natural and artificial mango lemonade flavors. I got this one over up at the 7-Eleven. We're celebrating the 20th Baja-versary. So grab yourself a Mountain Dew Baja Laguna Lemonade, crack one with the boys.
Oh,
it just sprayed me in the face.
Yeah, it shot everywhere. That was great.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a question for you. Bacon. Are you a crispy bacon guy or a pliable bacon guy?
Dude, I like it all. Okay. There's no bad bacon in my opinion. If I'm cooking it for myself, I'm going to try to get, a nice balance of crispy and then like those flappy fat pieces at the end. I kind of just leave those be because that's where the flavor lives and resides. If someone just like completely burns the bacon, yeah, I'll still eat it, but I mean, it's not as good as like well prepared bacon. How do you prepare your bacon? Obviously you have a skillet. So did you just throw it in the skillet?
No.
Nah. Are you an oven bacon guy?
No.
Microwave bacon guy?
I microwave this bacon.
See, that's the thing is like some people, the way they cook their bacon, you have to treat it, like almost like if they have pets in the home. I don't know why I'm eating this microwave bacon because it's sacrilegious.
No, it is it is sacrilegious. I microwaved this bacon because I didn't want to fuck the bacon up. I knew that if I cooked it in a skillet, I would rush it because I was like running short on time. I was like, I'm going to burn the fuck out of this bacon. So I microwaved it.
Very good.
For time's sake, because I made the pancakes 100% from scratch.
Had you told me that beforehand, I would have just thrown it in the garbage. I like that you had a mouthful of bacon when I did that. I'm kind of one of those guys where like skillet, flat top, that sort of thing. I love that sort of bacon. I'll tolerate it in the oven if you're going to put like the foil down and like put down your little strips of bacon or whatnot. But microwave is the worst.
Sorry.
You're just putting cancer into something that already includes cancer. It's like
I'm trying to get out of here fast.
It's okay. All right. Tonight or?
Let's see what time.
Well, thank you for the pancake. It was delicious. Do I detect a hint of cinnamon in that pancake?
Yeah. I got a few secret spices in there, all microwaved. No, it's the secret. You
don't have to divulge any secrets. Let's save it for the Patreon where you can demonstrate it, give away.
I'm going to give this one for free for anybody who's making their pancakes.
Free game.
It's easy.
Free game alert.
No. Pumpkin pie spice. or apple pie spice.
Okay.
So like the
now that
ginger,
you're
the
saying
nutmeg,
it, I'm
the
tasting-
cinnamon tastes like fall. Just give that a little sprinkle into your pancake mix. Even if you're doing like a mix, like a dry mix that you bought, like a Krusty's like pancake mix, just sprinkle that in there, and it takes it just a little bit over the top.
Dropping knowledge, you can make your box pancakes and or waffles taste that much better with just a sprinkle of spice.
Yeah. And there's dried orange peel in this.
God damn. That's really, really good. Thank you so much. It was tasty. I went through this phase a couple of years ago where I was making, I was like doing everything vegan, but like for family, like on the weekends, I was making these vegan pancakes, and I had found this recipe. I don't even know if I can still find it right now, but it was like the best vegan pancake recipe ever. And we probably went through about 500 of those pancakes.
Damn.
Because they were just really, really good. My kids would ask for them. And like, it was just kind of one of those things where we just like went through it for a hot minute. So I love pancakes. I love all kinds of pancakes. Blueberry is one of those things where it's like, you can't, when you get a good fat blueberry pancake, it's just real good.
Some wild blueberries in there, those big juicy ones. And yeah, speaking of vegan pancakes, I've definitely flipped at least between 1 and 10,000 vegan pancakes.
I would say so, yeah. That's one of those things where there's going to be somebody ordering pancakes at Spiral for sure. It just doesn't end. Well, you've got a great hockey sweater on. I'm looking at a Boston Bruins throwback here, Winter Classic, yellow and black hockey sweater. And so we are both kind of on the periphery of hockey. We're fans, mostly by proximity of other people that are probably fans. One of my best friends is a huge Pens fan. His son has played throughout high school and college, and I've been able to kind of see him and his growth and be able to kind of vicariously live through that. Just really exciting to watch a young man start off as like, a really, really young man. And then to be at the university level now, it's just something quite cool to see. So hockey, when did you get into hockey? Or, like I said, we're kind of both novice-ly or like on surface level hockey, but like when was kind of your first, when did hockey kind of burst its way into your life?
I mean, honestly, in the 90s, growing up as a kid in the 90s, Wayne Gretzky was huge, but I lived in Illinois, which you could actually go play ice hockey on the ponds when they froze over. And a bunch of my friends played Pee Wee hockey and all that. I never got to play on one of those teams. I'm not very well coordinated. But I did play a lot of roller hockey, with friends, like pickup games and stuff, and did that a lot, like middle school time before I moved to Texas. And then as far as like interest in hockey kind of took hold of me like early 20s, and I was like super involved and like watched every Stars game, watched every Bruins game. Those were like the two teams I kept up with hard. And so yeah, I was like super into it probably from like 2009 to about 2013, 2014. And then I just kind of got busy and didn't have access to like watching hockey as often. So kind of fell off after that.
It's an interesting sport. It's one of those things where like as a kid, it's easier to see like basketball and be like, oh, I could do that. I can throw a ball inside of a hoop and I have access to that sort of equipment. But like, especially as like a person of color, like seeing a lot of hockey stuff is like one of those things where you think like, I couldn't afford the stick, let alone every other piece of equipment that came with hockey. But I think the turning point for a lot of people our age, it was the Mighty Ducks.
Oh yeah.
And so even if you were not into hockey at all, but you were our age and you saw that first Mighty Ducks movie, you probably fell in love with it. And then just like how cool did we got to see something that like went from like a Disney concept to like a real life NHL team.
Yeah, but fuck the Ducks.
Always. They're one of the worst.
They're the Sharks are worse than the Ducks. Like fuck the Sharks and then fuck the Ducks and then fuck the Avalanche.
So yeah, that's kind of I was not super into hockey. Like I said, growing up, I think we did a lot of moving around. parents, weren't super into that sort of thing. But the Mighty Ducks was a huge deal. And then after that, moving to Fort Worth in 1998 was my freshman year in high school. That was just like right in the middle of like Madonna fever.
Ooh.
And so you know how there's times in your life where like you look back and you're like, no matter else what was going on, that was kind of a cool moment.
Yeah.
And I really hated moving here to the area. Like my life was super set up, and like I had gone to like this really small middle school. Like we were living in a small town in Central Texas, and I had gone to a really cool middle school with a like core group of friends, and like kind of had my life planned out. Like was best friends with the high school coach's son, who was a quarterback, and like it was just one of those things where like life was great. We had a great house. My mom and dad had like bought a couple of acres of land, and we had like this really cool house that they had like basically like hand picked all the designs for everything. Damn. Like it was like just one of the most amazing times in my life, but I didn't want to move here. I was so sad, mad, angry at the world. And one of the times that I recall being super happy was watching the Stars play.
Yep.
And it just was like a new community of people that, cared about sport, and just that time in particular in this area. When we moved here, we basically sold everything that we had owned and moved into a townhome on Seminary. That's actually Seminary housing. And we didn't have much. I mean, there were like, for that first few years that we were here, the pleasures of like the Jumbo Jack being 99 cents just saved our asses a lot of time. And, and so my dad was going to school full time. He was a minister full time, and was also working at the seminary as a grounds person at that time. Oh. And then my mom was also working at the seminary at that time. So it was like one of those things where like, it was just our life. It was our bubble. Like my dad went to school there, worked there. All of our friends were there. We lived on campus. It was like, you couldn't get away from it, but we didn't have cable or anything like that. And so it was one of those things, like you said, it's harder to get access to a hockey game than it is to like, they're playing playoff games on ABC just about every night. So
you can watch it on HBO or Hulu or wherever now.
Back then it was difficult. You had to have, I think it was Fox Sports Southwest or Fox Sports Net, or, even sometimes ESPN had the games. And if you didn't have cable at that time, so what wound up happening is that there was these huge watch parties going on in the community rooms of the seminary. Oh. And so you had all these like young men that were living by themselves, kind of like studying the Word of God, and then meeting up in these small community centers and popping a bunch of popcorn. And I mean,
studying the Word of Madonna.
Yeah, dude. And so, just getting into like where kind of nostalgia hockey, that 1998-99 Dallas Stars team was a magical team to watch. It was the first time that my mom and dad really got into hockey, and that kind of brought me along. And so if you're hearing drums in the background right now, we are recording our podcast live at EMP Rehearsal Studios. And so you may hear Frozen Soul or Trauma Ray or one of the other illustrious groups that are practicing around us right now. So pay never mind to that.
This Anyways. Also might be Hell Yeah playing.
So Ghost. At that time, like I said, we would go to these community centers and watch these hockey games, and it would just be like a group of 20 people that didn't know each other, that came from literally around the world. Like one of our best friends, Ziugwa Kakuyu, was from Nigeria, him and his family. And again, literally they had nothing. They brought like, I think a tape player and like a suitcase worth of clothing, and just like all of these stories just come together and just to watch this hockey game. And so just to shout out some of the names that, like, I was just looking back at that team, some of the names that kind of stood out to me, obviously Mike Modano, Yuri Litnin. He was, a great hockey player. Joe Neuendijk. You had Craig Ludwig. The coach was Ken Hitchcock. The goalie was Ed Belfour. You had Darren Hatcher on the team. Brett Hull was on the team. And they beat the Buffalo Sabres to win the Stanley Cup in a crazy overtime game. I don't know. Do you remember this? Or
I
Am I just
wasn't living in
talking sense?
Texas, so I was like, I kept up with the St. Louis Blues and the Chicago Blackhawks, and that was about it.
So they were, it was game 6, and they were playing the Sabres, and they had gone to a third overtime. It was literally like 2:00 in the morning. And so you can imagine all of us just being dog dead tired. Yeah. And the game ended in one of the most controversial goals of all time because Brett Hull's skate was in the crease when he scored. Oh. And so, at that time, it was one of those things where like they had called it a goal and then they had reviewed it and they had talked to some of the players on the other team and they're like, what can we do? There's nothing we could do. So, if you're a Stars fan, obviously it was a good goal. If you're a Sabres fan, that game and that series is referred to as no goal. So screw you, Buffalo Sabres. Brett Hull brought home the championship for us. And that was one of the times that around that same time before then, actually, before we'd moved to Fort Worth and I'd got into the Dallas Stars, one of the things that we were doing in Central Texas was seeing a lot of, minor league hockey.
Oh.
And so, if you're here because of the violence and you also enjoy hockey, you got to get into minor league hockey.
Oh, the Brahmas from here.
Exactly. So I was living in Central Texas at the time. So the team that I was supporting, and we went to a lot of games because, again, cheap entertainment, Central Texas Stampede played the Brahmas a lot. But one of the fun things to do is because I'm from El Paso, originally I was born in El Paso, is to watch the El Paso Buzzards come to town. And man, it was cool because it was like your hometown coming to see you where you were at. And, obviously just like crazy fights all the time in minor league hockey. And just, that's part of it. It's one of those things where like I was watching a piece on the Broad Street Bullies and they had said that their enforcer, the Dave Schultz, the Hammer, they said that he really didn't fight until he got into the minor leagues.
Yeah.
And he was like actually a prolific scorer for most of his youth and up until the fact that he got into minor leagues and
that's where everything went right or wrong.
Exactly. So if you're into violence, but you can't afford a Dallas Stars ticket, look around your area, find your minor league hockey games. Yeah. They're not going to be as expensive as pro games. They're going to be just as entertaining, sometimes even more so. Yeah. I mean, there's less of, the TV interruptions. There's a lot of giveaways there. They try to build a really good community when it comes to minor league games. And so, just shout out to El Paso Buzzards, Austin Ice Bats, Central Texas Stampede, Fort Worth Brahmas. When I was in, I would say 4th through 8th grade, that's the hockey I was watching.
Yeah.
And my Uncle Bob was a truck driver, and he had stopped by to visit us one time on his route, and El Paso Buzzards were in town. And so we're like, hey, we're going to go to the hockey game. And, our hometown's coming to town. And he definitely got kicked out.
Uncle Bob
got kicked out. He folded. So one of the things that they had on every seat that they had was like a calendar that had like a schedule of events. And it was like every game for the season. And it was like 11 by 17 poster size on cardstock. It was one of those like really nice ones, like you could like a show flyer almost. And so he folded it up into like this really amazing paper airplane, and definitely it made it all the way down to the ice. They had to stop play for Uncle Bob's airplane. He got escorted out. And my dad was kind of pissed because I think it was maybe like first quarter between first and second period. So not quarter period. Sorry, you can see our level of fandom here. But and my dad was like, no, we're not leaving. He can stand outside and wait for us. And
That's what you get, Uncle Bob.
Bob's outside chain smoking cigarettes while the El Paso Buzzards and the Central Texas Stampede are beating the shit out of each other on the inside. But, that's the type of guy Uncle Bob is. He's hilarious, and sometimes it takes it a step too far, and we still love him and care for him, and he's awesome. And so shout out Uncle Bob. Shout out minor league hockey. Love that stuff. So, you have anything you want to bring up hockey wise? I feel like I'm talking.
No, you were all good.
Way too much. That's my wife's. It's funny. We're on episode 4. All of my friends, all of my acquaintances, everyone have been telling me, "Oh, it's great. You guys sound great. Great job. You guys are doing great." Not one person has said anything like, "You know what you should do," or this is kind of. So she listened to the first episode and she goes, "Okay, are you ready?" And I was like, am I ready for what?
Notes.
And she's like, are you ready for my notes? And I was like, No. I was like, no, please don't tell me what you think of my podcast 1 episode in. Like,
I'm not telling Heather that it's live yet.
Oh.
That's a joke. She knows it's live.
Yeah. So she's the one person in my life where she was like, I have notes. And I'm like, I'm going to get in my head then if you like immediately tell me. Like, so yeah, one of the things that I've been accused of in my life, I'm working on it. Hopefully this podcast will help me be better at it, but it is to shut the fuck up and let other people talk. So,
I also get accused of that too. So this will be good for both of us.
Nice.
I mean, really just as far as like, minor league hockey goes, Brahmas are what I, kind of grew up watching. And again, the violence, like going from like a Brahmas game to a Stars game, there's guaranteed to be at least 3 fights at a minor league hockey game.
Oh,
where if you're going to an NHL game, you might get one maybe if they're really pissed off. And also if it's playoffs or Stanley Cup, you're getting, more on edge, which we should probably talk about because by the time this goes live, we will be in the Stanley Cup finals.
That's correct. So the reason we're talking hockey is because, again, the Dallas Stars are in the playoffs right now. They are playing the Edmonton Oilers. The series is tied 2-2 at the moment. We're looking pretty strong. And I'm right there with you. Positive energy, all good things, positive push. Let's go Stars, go Stars. One of my favorite things, Dallas Stars related, is when they do the Star Spangled Banner and everybody in the crowd yells Stars.
I did that at my son's track meet because I forgot where I was. They're doing the Star Spangled Banner and I yelled Stars and everyone turned around and looked at me because I was the only one in the stands who did it. Whoops.
They're like, is Ronnie Paul here?
But yeah,
that's another 90s
forget
nostalgia thing. Dallas Stars, Pantera. That's
and they still play Pantera, and sometimes they play Power Trip. Sometimes you're lucky and you catch a Power Trip song.
Yeah. Do you currently? So you're currently, like you said, you're watching a little bit of hockey throughout the playoffs.
Like I keep up. Like I'll look, like even during the regular season, like once a week I'll look. Hey, where are we at? Like where are we standing? If I have a night off or time to sit down and access to a game, because it has gotten easier over the years, I'll sit down and watch a game. But like right now, it's playoff hockey. It's the most exciting time for hockey. So I'm trying to watch that. There are TVs at my job. So we've had hockey or basketball on every night.
Yeah, that's
great. Been awesome.
Another thing going on right now in DFW sports is, as a matter of fact, need to check the score on that, but the Mavericks are in the Western Conference Finals playing the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm pretty sure they're going to close that out tonight. Right before we came in here, they were up by like 10 or 15.
It is a minute 47 in the third. It's 95-69.
Yeah,
nice.
So the Dallas Mavericks will be in the finals next episode. So that's going to be a great thing to see. Same for us. We just got a TV at center. I bought this TV and put it in center. Like, I've been making power moves at center just on my own behalf. I bought this TV, and then I also brought my PS5 up there.
Ooh, I need to come hang out with you up there.
Yeah, just come up there at center. We'll chill and play some Fortnite. And I've got UFC 5 and Madden 24 and NBA 2K 24 and all that stuff up there. But so yeah, I've been trying to, like, I'm up there and I play the PlayStation more because I'm up there. Because like at home, I just never touched it. Same. And then I was like, okay, so I'll take it up to work. Because there are little pockets here. There, like if it rains, Magnolia just shuts the F down.
It's dead over there.
If it's a rainy day, we'll get a round or two in on each other up there. And so one of the things that we've been doing is we've also been putting like classic sports stuff on there. And nice. The other night, whenever Luka was playing, the other night whenever the Mavericks were playing, I thought they were going to close it out and go to the finals, but I put on some vintage Dirk Nowitzki stuff whenever they won the championship, and so we put his game on, had his jersey featured over there, but we have been putting on just like any of that cool stuff. But one of the cool things that if you are maybe a younger person and you didn't know about hockey is that throughout like I think it was like the 70s, pretty sure the late 60s and into the 70s, maybe even into the 80s, there was this like kind of cool thing internationally that was going on with hockey, and it was basically the Soviets versus the world. So
just like every movie from the 70s and 80s.
But what's really cool is that they would have these like super series weekends where they like the Soviets would come and play like 6 professional hockey teams in like the course of a couple of weekends. And so there's some really cool vintage YouTube stuff out there. If you ever want to see, just the way that Soviet hockey used to be played, it was a really kind of a graceful thing. They did a lot of like passing and holding of the puck and waiting for you to make a mistake. And then whenever you were out of position or your goalie was out of position, they would just ram it down there. And so they kind of played their game their way. And so one of the cooler things is that in 1976, they played the Philadelphia Flyers.
Broad Street Bullies.
Yeah, Broad Street Bullies. And so I'm a huge Philadelphia sports nut. My wife is from that area. Since I was a nomad kid, I was more, I grew up idolizing players and not teams. I was a big, Jordan kid, wanted to be like Mike. I still do. Still, every time he releases a shoe, I'm still trying to be like Mike. But growing up, I didn't have a home team per se. I lived in Alaska. I lived in Indiana. I lived in Texas. I've lived,
been a Pacers fan.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
Larry Bird's from Indiana.
Right. Reggie Miller was a great player. And my dad met Chuck Person, I think, one time at a pizza place. It was really cool. But anyway, when my wife and I got together, one of the things that her family is passionate about is Philadelphia sports. And so I was adopted into their family and got a home team. So now all of my home teams are Philadelphia home teams, and it feels great. Yep. I'm loving it. I love that the Eagles won a Super Bowl a couple of years ago.
Yeah, because what are the Cowboys doing? Yeah. Not a damn thing. But hey,
exactly.
At least the other
as
Dallas
long
teams
as
are
Jerry
good.
Jones is involved, the Dallas Cowboys will still never do a damn thing. So anyway, that's
Perfectly put.
Yeah. So you've got. I'm a big Eagles nut. Big Phillies nut. We go to anytime the Phillies come to town, we go watch them play, and we also go see them play in Philly pretty much every summer because we go up there at least once a year. And so with that comes the Flyers. And so there's a swath of players that came through the Flyers in the 70s, and they were known as the Broad Street Bullies. The Spectrum used to be on Broad Street in Philadelphia. And so there's a lot of great YouTube footage out there. You can just type in Broad Street Bullies highlights. But one of my favorite moments of the Broad Street Bullies highlights is the fact that they did play that Soviet team in the Super Series in 1976. And are you familiar with this at all?
A little bit.
Peripherally? Yeah. So what's really cool is they had this enforcer. His name's Dave the Hammer Schultz. This dude is just like huge, built like a tank, basically gave the Broad Street Bullies their identity. They kind of shifted. They were a great hockey team in the late 60s and early 70s, but they were just kind of smaller and they got pushed around a lot, and they were really sick and tired of that. And so they had drafted some just humongous, just brolic guys that were ready to go, and they really switched up their identity, and they came to play. They came to fight. And so the Soviets came, and they're ready to play Philadelphia, and right off rip, Philly just does not. They're just like they're ready to. They're one of their players super duper hard. He goes down, and their coach wanted like an elbow penalty and actually pulled the entire Soviet team off the ice, like within minutes of the game starting. Pull this team off the ice and tells the referee, if you don't give him an elbowing penalty, we're taking my boys and we're going home. And the referee, thank God, was not intimidated. He said, if you don't put your boys on the ice, I'm going to give you a delay of game penalty. And so they went back to the locker room, and they basically were like, we're not coming out, blah, blah, blah. Money talks. So somebody came and said, you want your money for this whole Super Series? It's not going to happen unless you get back on the ice. So they had to come back on the ice. This is in Philadelphia as well. So they're hearing it from all the fans, all the Philadelphia fans, whether you love them or hate them. They let the Soviets know what was up, and so did Philadelphia. Philadelphia wound up winning that game. I think it was like 4-2. It was really super like decisively a great game. So much so that Rob Zombie actually wanted to make a movie about it.
Yeah, that is the knowledge I have of it is that he was a big hockey fan, and I think he's from Philly.
Yeah.
And wanted to make a movie out of it, and it never happened.
I mean, which is crazy because you think what a great story. We hate the Soviets, still to this day. I mean, so you would get that.
Be the Rocky IV of hockey movies.
Exactly. And it would, we haven't had a good hockey movie in quite some time. We had Miracle, which was like not good, but it was like it told that story and it was necessary, and Disney was involved, so it was like a big blockbuster project. I mean, I cried at the end of it, so
I definitely teared up.
Yeah,
too.
So Miracles was a great movie. The intro to this podcast includes some hockey lore. So if you're not familiar with our intro, go back into the beginning of the episode and listen to it. But it's from the movie Billy Madison. It's shooting
Happy Gilmore.
Oh my God. Phil, I need you to go back and edit this part and make me not look so stupid. It's from Happy Gilmore. Sorry, I'm an idiot. What am I talking about? Happy Gilmore. God. Yeah, it's Happy Gilmore. You got Shooter McGavin in there. And so Happy, the thing is, he's a golfer, but he never really wanted to be a golfer. His ultimate dream is to be a hockey player. He just couldn't skate. And so, so you have that tie in there, the intro there. We did look over this top 10 list of NBC Sports, like best violent moments. And so I'll throw the three that kind of popped out to me. Number one, the Philly Flyers are like in 3 or 4 of the top 10 lists. So obviously the Flyers are notorious for that. But the 2012 game when Philly was playing Washington Capitals and the entire team basically went at it.
Yes.
Emery, the goalie, like you could see the umpires, referees, they were pleading with him to stop, but he was like not going to stop until he got the other goalie down. And even
I love when goalies fight.
Oh yeah, it's classic. When the goalies get into it, it's classic. And so I'm glad you said that, because the next one on my list is Patrick Waugh. I mean, that dude was the epitome of like 90s hockey swag. I mean, like if there ever was like just a G of G's whenever it came to like the 90s, like you said, we all know Wayne Gretzky. Right. We all know Mario Lemieux. We all know some of these great names. But when it comes to like swag and like, I mean, Patrick Waugh, his fight with Osgood from the Red Wings, man, he was just like going at it. There's a couple of them with Patrick Waugh in there where he's basically, but the reason I pointed it out is because we just talked about Max Holloway calling a shot and saying, I want to see you right here. That's what he did with Osgood. He gave him to Max Holloway. He said, Holloway, he said right here in the middle, and knocked out Osgood. And then the last one is when the Bruins fought the fans.
That's what I want to talk about. Yeah. That's again why I wore the sweater that I'm wearing.
Yeah, that's classic.
There are 2 different instances of the Bruins going into the stands to fight the fans, like the opposing team fans. And that's fucking awesome. Also, after spending a lot of time in Boston, like in the mid 2000s, I just kind of how Boston rolls. Yeah. Like I got in multiple fistfights in the streets of Boston just for like walking.
For sure.
Like, so yeah, I mean, just brawling in the stands.
Stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason sometimes, you know what I mean? And there's a lot to be said for Boston and
fucking massholes.
Yeah. I mean, Joe Rogan's from there, Bill Burr's from there. Like you can tell there's an attitude of people that are coming from there. So, but yeah, so the Bruins just going into the stands and just fighting with fans. And I think it was in New York, the clip that we saw. And you know, there was people even like fighting with, they were even fighting with the cops.
Yeah, another fight, like Bruins swinging on cops, swinging on fans. Like I think that was what, 79?
Yeah.
And then there was another one. I forget what year it was. Oh, it was probably late 80s or early 90s. And again, I think it was Toronto swinging on fans and cops, because cops were getting in between the Bruins and the fans.
So I was looking at Wikipedia about hockey just to get a little bit more knowledge. And I thought that this was kind of cool that men's ice hockey is classified as, quote, a full contact combat sport. There's actually a link that you can click on for full contact combat sport that leads you to the definition. It's basically any combat sport that allows attempts to physically incapacitate opponents. And so just juxtapose that to, like, let's say basketball. I mean, like, we've seen fights in basketball, but like if it was allowed for someone like Shaquille O'Neal to try to physically incapacitate another opponent.
Reach.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I played basketball growing up. Like that was my sport of choice. Mm-hmm. That's what I played. And I played it very physically, mostly because I was just like an angry young dude.
Right.
But I got thrown out of multiple games for like laying people out. So yeah, it would have been awesome to like, hey, give them 2 minutes. Whoever hits the ground first, we're stopping it.
Right, exactly. So speaking of 2 minutes, so another one that got sent our way by a friend was Jay Beagle versus Aaron Asham. Did you catch that at all? I sent it your way, but
yeah, I did watch it.
Yeah, so that one was very cool to me because, I mean, what a G way to knock somebody out. And basically, like, what I thought was cool is, like, he hit him and knocked him out and had the wherewithal to, like, guide him to the floor gently as to not knock out his front teeth as well.
Or, like, you know, fracture his skull. Like very, I mean, I know they're holding onto each other's sweaters for stability.
Sure.
But also, like, if you get knocked out, like, you don't want somebody's blood on your hands because you
just drop them face first. Yeah. So Aaron Asham got the best of Jay Beagle, and he gave him the little night symbol on the way to the penalty box. It was one of those ones where he just knew, like, I'm on my way to the penalty box. He gave him like the cross, no thank you, and then the night symbol, and he was in the he's in the penalty box. And so Jay Beagle's down for a hot minute. There's blood pouring out of his jaw. And then he gets up, and you can just see, you visibly see his face is contorted, distorted, and his jaw is not where it was whenever the fight started. And he mouths, "I'm all right." And he's not all right. And very quickly, the commentator says he's all right, but he is not all right.
Nope.
And what wound up happening is Aaron Asham served that 5-minute major, and Jay Beagle didn't come back to play hockey for 31 games. So this game is violent. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's brutal. I mean, imagine, like, the most violent fight you could see, and then throw, like, blade skates and ice into that. Oh. And so one of the ones that's one of the more harder ones to talk about, one of the more harder ones to watch, and more recently is this Adam Johnson incident that happened. And we're going to talk about it just kind of quickly because it is pretty graphic and pretty hard to talk about. So if you've got a weak stomach, or if you just don't want to hear about this, if you know about the incident, skip forward maybe like 2 or 3 minutes. But it is one of the most, one of the things that I wanted to talk about in particular when it comes to violence, especially with this podcast, because when we were younger, we had to seek out that violence online. That was like, you would not just type in yahoo.com and then be inundated with violence. The news was kind of the closest thing that you would get to that. But when we were younger, there was no avenue for us to just open up and explore page and have violence shoved in your face.
We didn't have Twitter and Instagram, like, where, you know, you might have a warning like, hey, this is graphic,
right?
But you click it and there it is.
But what's crazy is I did see this Adam Johnson thing on Instagram without any warning. And it was probably one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen happen on ice. If you haven't seen it, like I said, we're only going to talk about it for the next minute or so. But Adam Johnson was a young minor league hockey player. He was
he played for the Penguins.
Yeah.
And then he was playing in a European league.
Yeah, and he was over in London playing. And so what happened was there was an opponent player came crashing into him and threw his leg up and sliced his throat with his with his skate. And so, like I said, just opening up Instagram one day, I was not looking for this, and it really was probably one of the harder things that I watched, and I really didn't know what I was watching, and I had gotten too far into it for me to, like, kind of not want to know what was going on, because I was like, well, how is this even on Instagram? And so I forced myself, you know, to watch it and to kind of get a deeper story into that. And so there was kind of some speculation on, like, was that intentional? Was that not intentional? We're not here to cast judgment on that guy. He's obviously been arrested for his actions. Whatever happens to him is for him. But I mean, just one of the most horrific things that I've ever seen. He immediately dropped down to his knees, to his face, and just the amount of blood of just pulling out of him was just tragic. He couldn't even make it back to the bench. He got up and tried to skate back to the bench and collapsed. Yeah. And so we just want to send condolences to his family, to anybody that had to witness that. It was a tragic thing, but that's kind of the age we're living in, where even if you have the most purest of intentions on Instagram or TikTok or a Twitter of just, like, kind of like wishing someone a happy day, and you happen to click the wrong thing, you might be exposed to something, you know, it's right there in your face. So yeah, it was a hard thing to see. Rest in peace to him. And that's one of the tragedies that we've actually witnessed. I mean, within the last year, I mean, just right there in your face. And so hockey is one of those sports that you really, have to respect. I mean, everybody that plays hockey. I mean, I tried inline hockey for a bit, and it's like not only is skating hard, but also just like coordination and all that. So if we missed out on any of your favorite violent hockey moments, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a phone call, 682-294-0101. Leave us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us about your favorite hockey moments, violent or otherwise. We just love to talk hockey with you. If you want to point us in the direction of a good hockey film or documentary, I'm super into that. The one that I've got on my list is HBO did a documentary on Broad Street Bullies a few years ago. I've got that on my list. And so if you want to talk hockey, hit us up on our phone line, 682-294-0101. Anything else hockey-wise, hockey-related you want to bring up?
I mean, we briefly talked about movies, but if we're going to talk hockey movies, violence, Goon was one of the better ones of the last 10 or so years. I know they did a sequel. I don't think I ever saw that. But again, that is a solid movie, fictional, but it is written by fans who love hockey, and you can tell that everyone involved was very passionate about hockey. And it's a cool story. Sean William Scott is actually not terrible in it, and it's got lots of violence.
He was one of those actors that kind of got pegged for like, if he's in it, it's going to be just a dumb movie, you know? So yeah, I agree with you. Goon is a great movie. All of the Mighty Ducks movies are great movies. Miracle's a great movie. Cutting Edge. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I don't think I ever saw Cutting Edge.
Cutting Edge is a romantic comedy where a hockey player falls in love with a figure skater.
Yes, figure skater. I have not seen it, but I've seen the cover. I can see the cover.
Mom and I have watched that many a time. So I was a kid that watched a lot of romantic comedies. I was the only child, so like if my mom was watching it, I'm like, all right, I'll watch Sleepless in Seattle for those 2
That's how I saw Sleepless in Seattle. That's how I saw Dirty Dancing. Watched a lot of Grease. Yeah, no, same story. Only child. Mom watched a lot of movies that Dad didn't want to watch. I watched them too.
We loved going to Blockbuster and getting those 49-cent deals. Those
Family Video was ours.
Oh, okay.
Two movies, 7 nights, $1.
I love that. So mom and pop video rental stores, Blockbuster, those were a thing back when we were kids. And, if you're younger than us, we feel sorry for you because the experience of walking into one of those places and just smelling that wet carpet smell and just begging your mom to let you get a video game as well as renting a movie.
Just need that Genesis game. I need that Booger Man on Super Nintendo.
And then
that was my go-to.
Stocking the returns because you were waiting for someone that
just waiting by the box.
Waiting on the returns just for that next day release to come in. And then you would even get to the point where you're like, can you call them and see if they're done with that so that they can...
Oh, it's late? Call them. They're like, what do you think we've been doing?
Yeah.
I worked at 2 different video rental stores. I got lots of fun stories about this. One was in Denton, and it had not been updated since 1983.
We should just have the movies episode where we talk violence movies.
I love talking movies.
All right, so thank you, hockey, for all of the lovely memories and nostalgia. I legit was about to cry talking about the Dallas Stars of 1998-99. I mean, again, sports is such a silly thing. It's a romantic thing. It is definitely from the Romans, lions and feasts and stuff. Fighting and sport and that sort of thing is such a cool thing. And so to be able to be involved in a community that was able to celebrate a championship like the Dallas Stars in 1998, 1999 was just a beautiful thing. So hats off to hockey fans and fighters and players worldwide. We love everything that you're doing. The Dallas Stars will be in the Stanley Cup Finals in the next couple of weeks. The Mavericks are going to be in the NBA Finals in the next couple of weeks. So it is a wonderful time to be a Dallas sports fan. Just check us out if you're from around the DFW area. The Mavericks have a loaded squad. Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving are just balling out of their minds right now. So yeah, it's 1:11:85. We got about 7 minutes to go. Yeah, this is in the bag.
We got it.
Anthony Edwards, maybe next year, not this year, buddy. So before we take off this weekend here in 3 days, UFC 302 will be going on, and the headliner for that card is Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Diamond Poirier. The co-headliner is going to be Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa. I don't know if any of those names mean anything to you.
I know Dustin Poirier.
Dustin Poirier, that's a household name if you're kind of into that whole thing. So Islam Makhachev is Khabib Nurmagomedov's protege.
I've seen a couple of his
heir
fights,
to his throne.
Yeah.
He's a Dagestani wrestler, and he's aiming to take Dustin Poirier down and basically just strangle him. Whereas Poirier, he comes from Lafayette, Louisiana, and he wants to knock his lights out. So it's going to be a fun fight. The co-main event I mentioned is Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa. Sean Strickland had the belt at middleweight for about a couple months. He got that belt from Israel Adesanya and then promptly lost that belt. So right now he's trying to kind of find his way back up the ranks, and he's fighting Paulo Costa. Now, Paulo Costa is from Brazil. He's the Eraser. What's fun about Paulo Costa is he looks like he's on steroids, and many people accuse him of being on steroids, and so he's just leaning into it. He carries this huge jug that's filled with pink stuff, and he's labeled it Paulo's secret juice. And so he is really, really leaned into the fact that all these people think that he's on steroids. So he's like, you're going to think that I'm steroids? Fine. And so that's kind of the storyline, is Sean Strickland's like, you got that secret juice. I don't know. Also, Sean Strickland's kind of an interesting character. He is very much I would say he's a conservative. He's very conservative. And so he's an outspoken conservative. He's kind of up Trump's asshole a little bit. But he is one of those guys that when we talked about Dana White letting someone say anything, he's going to say anything. And so today at the press conference was very funny. You had Sean Strickland and Paulo Costa kind of going back and forth. Paulo's English is getting a lot better, and so he's getting a lot quicker with his comebacks and his trash talking. And so beforehand it was a little bit harder for you to understand. Sean was a little caught off guard with that. The face-offs were just great. If I just showed the face-off of Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier to Parker right before we started this podcast, and those guys looked like they were either going to fight or make sweet love to one another. So looking forward to the third to last fight of the night will be Kevin Holland versus Michael Oleksiejczuk. I think that's how you say it. I don't care how you say his name, because Kevin Holland is going to win that fight, because Kevin Holland is from Fort Worth, Texas.
Fuck yeah.
And so Fort Worth, Texas represent Kevin Holland, the Trailblazer. Find him on Insta. He's a fun follow. He's a fun guy to watch. If you have 5 seconds, look him up on YouTube and he's literally on his back telling the guy he's fighting how good he is at fighting. He's like, damn, you are really good. You just hit me really hard. He's a hilarious fighter. He's always bringing a show. He's always looking to knock somebody out. And again, he's from Fort Worth. So when we had our dream casting portion of the first podcast, he's a name that I shouted out that I wanted on the podcast. So let's cheer for him. Let's have him get a win, so that way he's continuing on his, hot streak of being a popular fighter. And let's get him on Breakfast of Champions so he can tell us what he eats for breakfast. Those are all the fights I really want to talk about. There's some more, if something interesting pops off, we'll talk about it. Mickey Gall's fighting. He's always a fun fight to watch. Alex Morono's a very technical fighter, and he's a fun one to watch as well. So looking forward to this UFC fight, UFC 302. Early prelim cards will be on ESPN Plus and UFC Fight Pass. The preliminaries are going to be on ESPN2 and on ESPN Plus. And you got to spend that cheddar to watch the main card. It is a pay-per-view because these are world-class world champion athletes. So that wraps up the preview for UFC 302. I see you looking at something over there.
I looked up Kevin Holland because I was curious.
Yeah, he's a fun guy, man. Yeah. He's super into shoes. Apparently he's a size 13 and has been into center before. So Kev, if this makes your way, hit me up at the shop. I got you. CenterTX.com. That's me, my boy Jason. We run the shop in Fort Worth. So I hear you're size 13. If you need something, holler at your boy Renee over at Center. Good luck on your fight. Thank you for the pancakes and the bacon once again.
Sorry about the bacon.
Oh no, it's okay. That provided entertainment. Had I known, I probably wouldn't have indulged, but I didn't know, so I had it. And it was fine. I didn't die. I'll take my cancer later. So thank you again for the pancakes. Thank you again for the hockey talk. We appreciate anybody and everybody that's listened to our podcast. up until this point.
We got some lovely mood music in the
Yeah.
background.
Great.
Hell yeah, brother.
We appreciate you if you've heard us before. Like I said, Breakfast Champions everywhere, 682-294-0101. Give us a call. Let us know your thoughts on hockey, fights, breakfast foods, the podcast, your favorite hardcore bands. Holler at us just about anything. Thank you, Parker. I appreciate you. We're going to wrap this up. You want to say thank you or goodbye to anybody?
Thanks for listening.
Thanks
also,
for listening.
we got social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. If you're old like us, go drop us a line on there. Give us a follow. Check it out.
Yeah. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.